Josh, how did this sermon and the passage work on you?
I think just thinking about the peace of Christ and how that it invades our lives. You know, it's a very comforting message, and seeing the way that Paul did that, not in a way that was like with fire and brimstone, but in a gentle way. Very encouraging, I think. So.
Dio?
I think I was super encouraged to think about Christ and receive the peace of Christ first in my life and my anxieties, and then let that drive me to, as you said so well, like gently motivate others towards peace as well. I think that was like a really helpful for me to think about how those things work out. So,
Brian?
Whenever you said that Christ is the third person in their conflict, I thought it was great to remember that our conflict says more about Christ than it does even ourselves a lot of times, and that our conflict is greater than ourselves, and that we must always consider that we have an answer that's bigger than us and a witness that's bigger than us. And so there's kind of like that kind of gives the seriousness of it, and the hope of it is that, like, seriousness of it is that Christ is in it, but also like the hope of it is that Christ is also in it with us.
Just the fact that we can rejoice in conflict, I thought was very encouraging, because we're going to see conflict, and you were mentioning this everywhere, basically outside and unfortunately inside the church, but we can rejoice despite of it, right? I thought that was great. That was encouraging for me.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I appreciate how it was a call to reconciliation, and then at the end you said, or peace, and at the end you said, receive God's peace, and then you gave us that benediction, and it was, we're supposed to apply to the believer like comfort. How can we comfort the believer? That was comforting to me, and also it gives me hope that peace is possible on an earthly level if it's given to us by Christ.
I was encouraged because I've got a relationship in my life where I need to be working towards agreeing in the Lord. And so you're kind of spending some time on verses 2 and 3, like emphasis particularly, like it's in the church. It's with people who are like working with Paul. To raise that to the highest level of the nature of the relationship, so even there can be conflict, and Paul is gently correcting. So I personally felt like that correction come from the passage today, that like I need to get with this guy on this. So what was something that as you preached it or as you worked on it you thought, oh, this didn't go well?
A few verbal stumbles, maybe. Just kind of lost a few train of thought. I can't think of what it was right now. Maybe just not feeling so comfortable. Okay.
Just in the room with the people, or with the manuscript?
Just a different setting, and like the closeness of it, maybe.
This is like the hardest room in the world to preach in. With 5 guys on a dark, dismal day. Yeah. All right, Theo, help your brother.
I think I like track with your sermon really well. I think your transition from point to point was a little bit blurred, and I could have used some help. I know you did state when you're like, and this moves us to a community of peace. I think it just would have helped me, like, just to make it a little bit more explicit, like when you moved to this point and when you moved to this point. And I think like one of the things, and I think it was part of like the wordplay thing, is like you mentioned some elements of peace in like your second point, and it kind of like, and then you said, and now we're here at the community of peace, and that kind of like blurred it a little bit, moving from like one part of your sermon to the next a little bit.
Sure.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree with you. Another thing is, I liked the social media age of conflict, but I kind of felt like it was a little bit the low-hanging fruit, because I think there's the conflict. That's a societal conflict, and he's talking about a church conflict, and we have so much church conflict that you could refer to. You know, like you can point to almost any church and be like, church conflict, church conflict, church conflict, and I mean, many of us have all gone through church conflict and handled it poorly, and so I think by doing that you could have been even more pointed with that, and I think I wanted that out of it a little bit more, and so, but it's not so much that you missed it. I think it's just you just didn't take it as far as I wanted it. So
Yeah, it's a little hard to criticize your sermon because I thought it was pretty good. The one thing that kept standing out to me was kind of your, and I guess it goes with what you already mentioned, that you felt uncomfortable. I didn't feel you were directly like talking to me. You were kind of looking around, but not like specifically looking at us. You kept like looking back at your notes. You just seemed very unsure, kind of, in the way you were.
Yeah, your gaze seemed to be like somewhere down this aisle right here. Like when you would either look, I was like, is he looking at Trevor? Did you feel like he was looking at you?
Here and there. Here and there.
I didn't feel like I got any eye contact. So I could kind of, for whatever it's worth.
It made me think of the quote that's right there in front of you. Not because it doesn't ring true for you, but it's just, it didn't come across in your delivery so much.
Trev.
Yeah, enjoyed a lot of that sermon, Josh, and kind of picking up on some of what these guys say. I think what Theo mentioned, just the verse delineation might have helped me track a little bit more. I think I could track for the most part, but I think that would have maybe made it a little more clear where you're getting your points.
I think my biggest challenge was within your points. So I have all three of your points, right? It's a community that reconciles, it's marked by joy, and it practices peace. But then like within each of those points, I wasn't sure like what you were doing, if there was an explanation of like, I didn't necessarily figure out what it meant to have the peace of God. And you use that a lot, so like the peace of God will guard your hearts. Used it later to talk about peace we have with God through the gospel. So I wasn't quite sure like how to do it so much, or exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Like, I mean, I knew like, okay, a community is marked by joy, but what does that look like? What? You asked a question like, what motivates our joy? I didn't feel like I got like an answer on that. So, I mean, I'll kind of go the other way on what Theo said. I followed your 3 points. Like, I knew right where you were and what you were doing on each of those. But I was muddy in between. Brian, you got another one?
no, that's it.
Victor?
No, it's good.
Okay. Trev, you can take 3 if you want.
I was thinking a bit of what both these guys said. Brian was just mentioning, it's not just because of the world's disagreements, that kind of comes and affects the church, but it's also like our own hearts that, you know, are sinful, are in our flesh, and that cause the conflict within. I think you know, for the most part, your address was to the church and the problems within the church. But yeah, I was just thinking the source of those problems are, you know, from within. And then also just what Victor mentioned. At times I felt a little bit like you were talking past us in the room rather than addressing us.
Right.
You were standing up, so that's.
Oh wait, I skipped Theo on round 2 too.
That's true.
Sorry, go ahead, Theo.
Yeah. I think it's kind of already been mentioned. I think one of the ways you might have been able to like land it a little bit more home to us is to take one more like step in your applications. I think everything you said was like good and true. But like when it came to like, you know, the women who like called and they were having like a conflict, and you're like, this is a bad example, like this shouldn't be the case. Like one way I was thinking of like, I was kind of wanting you to land is like, how would our joy in Christ, or how would peace that we have, like reconciliation we have with God, like fix that situation? Like what would you want to say to them about like, hey, you do have peace in Christ now, and this is how it should play out in your conflict. So I think it was just like just one more step in that direction that would have like is something that I wanted in your sermon. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to look back through my notes and see to just kind of pick up on Theo's. I don't know that there was a whole lot of you, like where you actually turned it to us. It was a lot of description without a lot of call for pointed particular implication or like problematizing in terms of like what would impede us from doing these things. I think everybody, right, like especially us who you were preaching to, which I love that you chose us as your preaching audience. But you know nobody here is going to object to reconciling, being marked by joy, or practicing peace. So what are the obstacles that we face in overcoming those? And how would you, like, not because we would be antagonistic to them, at least in our Christian selves, but in our flesh, right? Like, so I think on that, like, that could be a way to just think through your applications, like, what makes us be like Euodia and Syntyche, have this division, right? And like, what? So something like that. I also thought another small one, when you went through your list of disagreements, like that was a good thing to do. I thought maybe you went like, you at least listed, I think at least 10 to 12 of them. Probably 3 or 4 would be enough, because then pretty soon we're like, oh boy, now you're going into 1 Corinthians, now you're like talking about circumcision. It's like there's all potential things for people to get like hung up on. And I just think like overall, I think maybe this just kind of goes, it's like, it just didn't feel simple. Somebody said, yeah, I think I said within the middle points, it was just kind of muddy. You're trying to do a lot. I think you might get more clarity, precision by doing a little bit less explaining about it and then turning towards this application to say, what does it mean for us, for you as a future ministry leader? What was something you were pleased with that you tried and you thought was helpful, seemed to be good in this instance?
I think I was just thinking back in my worksheet a little bit, like I saw in the text a lot more the peace of God that was kind of integrated into every text or into every point even. And so maybe just having that, I think it worked for me to have just that focus on the peace
Yeah.
of Christ and of God, and then especially at the end of Jesus, which encouraged me, I guess, as I'm preaching about it, you know, going to Ephesians and thinking of the blood of Christ
Mm-hmm.
bringing us together.
I like that connection.
Theo.
I think your like handling and exegesis of the text was really good and really like I thought it was like a cool way to frame like I don't know, when you started listing off like some of the debates that Paul was dealing with in disagreements, it kind of gave me like a good like three-dimensional view of like the world that Paul lived in. And he's like, yeah, these disagreements are here all the time. You can just like, look at the New Testament and see like all these disagreements, and that gave me a lot of perspective. And I think you're right, and this is something I didn't pick up on my worksheet. When you work through the text and you notice like peace is mentioned in all three in like different ways. I think that was like a really strong like theme that is not obvious if you just like read quickly over the text, and like bringing that out for like the preaching audiences, like you did a good job on that.
Yeah. Right.
One of the parts of the sermon that like really got me was whenever you asked the question, what motivates our joy? It's the peace of God. You like paused. I was like, what motivates? What? I don't know. And it is like, it was a good question, and it came from the text, and the answers from the text and everything, and it was just, to me, it was just really good, and it got me thinking, and it kind of changed the pace for a minute, and it got me from just like listening to make me think and everything like that. I thought that was just like a good like rhetorical device kind of thing. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, for me, I think the best feature was your gospel connection, because it served to amplify your argument. Like, okay, this is like all stuff that we should agree on and we all recognize it's good, but then you get to the Gospels, like, all right, like we really have no excuse to be a community that reconciles or that rejoices and has peace. Like the gospel just makes it all the more obvious. So I thought that was just great.
I appreciate a little concession in there, and now that I'm kind of, my ears are a little more attuned to that, and you mentioned how Paul, even had some disagreements in his own life. I'm thinking with Barnabas, I don't know if that's going on your mind.
Right.
And also at one point you said something like, we need to begin the hard work of reconciliation. And even just in that statement is this, implication. It is, well, it's explicit, it's hard work, and it's not something that's going to be easy. And just thinking about your life and your experience, and I'm sure you've gone through some of those things, and so it's it helped me appreciate the point more, and because you conceded that this isn't going to be easy, but this is the call. So.
Your cowpox illustration, dude, that thing was amazing. To use the good thing to defeat the bad thing, to add something in order to eliminate the other thing, that served your point really well for what you were trying to do in terms of focusing on the good, reverse the thinking. Yeah, that was, and you told it really well too. You kind of mentioned, I was like, where is he going with this? And you kind of hit it. I was like, oh, I think I know where he's going. Then boom. So that was great.
I was a little worried when he started there.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yeah. Really
Theo.
I love listening to you preach, man. And your tone, your candor. I can tell you preach a lot, and the way you pair words together. I think one of the things you said, I wrote down, was the meaning, the nearness of Christ should motivate our gentleness, or just different things like that. I thought was just was really good, and yeah, I just think you like you speak really well, and like you like I appreciate like your speed you were going, the tone you were bringing to it, the style you brought to your preaching. I thought it was great. So yeah.
The Bonhoeffer quote just got me. I'm a big Bonhoeffer fan, and that really I never heard that quote before, and it just like that was just really good, and I felt like it really applied to the text really well, and I'll remember that quote for a long time. And then I also thought, if I can just skip two. We still have one more round, right?
This is your second round.
Oh crap. Okay. So one more then.
That's all right. You skipped one of your critiques, so.
Yep. So here it is. You get an extra compliment. Is that I thought you ended well, and like you knew where you picked out your place that you were gonna land, and you landed it, and you stuck. And so I just thought you did that well. And so.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where to put this, because it was both encouraging, but also I felt it was a good feature of your sermon. That your pastoral care and heart, I think, came through in your communication of the message. So we spoke about ethos like a few weeks ago or whatever, right? But I felt like you had our best intention in mind, and also considering your audience being in ministry or going into ministry, even having the best intention or interest of our congregations in mind, you know. And I think that pastoral care aspect of just the way you were delivering it came through in a big way. So praise God for that.
Thanks.
To repeat on something that has been said, you're easy to listen to, Josh, and it's just you're kind of a smooth communicator. You know, I'm learning that. I'm saying like all that. I didn't hear any of that.
No,
I don't know.
you're right. Yeah.
And then just your like transitions from text to application to illustration, it just sort of flows nice. So.
Yeah, I'll give two actually. You did something that I don't hear many people do, and I thought you did it well. I think each of your 3 points, you actually didn't begin with explanation, which is like textbook, but that doesn't mean it's right, or even necessarily good. But you actually talked about like why this point was going to matter, or the pertinence of it, and I just thought, oh, like, that's a different way to do it. So like I was engaged at that. Also, kind of what I alluded to in my encouraging thing is you amplified it in your first point to say like these are like the leaders, right? These are the ones where there's disunity that can happen, and so you marked the urgency of the message by saying even with the like seemingly most mature leaders, there can be disunity, and there will be, and there is, and you're going to face it, and so you better be ready to deal with it. So by just emphasizing who they were, names in the book of life, worked with Paul, right? Clement has to deal with this too. It's a big issue. So you mark the urgency and the importance of the issue by how much time you spent on that aspect. So it's good.